Hello, my name's Mike Calvin. I'm joined by Rory Smith of The Times, Duncan White of the Sunday Telegraph and Adrian Clark, the footballer turned journalist. Time for a new banner at Chelsea. JT, captain, leader, legend, manager. Robbie Di Matteo may have the job, but John Terry's in charge. Isn't he, Rory?
It looked that way last night. He was, after he came off injured in extra time, he seemed to be gesticulating. He was sort of making three to suggest three at the back, and he was just outside the dugout in the technical area. So he does seem to have managerial influence there, and I think when you have a figure like Roberto Di Matteo, who's not a strong presence in the way a Mourinho or a Guardiola would be, there's kind of a power vacuum there that Terry probably will occupy.
But all said and done, that was a fantastic performance on a personal level by him, wasn't it?
I thought Terry was magnificent last night. I thought he was absolutely superb. I mean, the way he organised the defence, the way things were actually falling apart quite early for Chelsea. Napoli were really picking him off. They were counter-attacking very well. There was too much space. Essien was going too far forward. Terry dragged it all back together. He showed a lot of tactical intelligence, but just played superbly. Even when he was clearly injured for much of the second half, he just carried on. So I thought, that we've heard a lot about Terry being finished and that he's not got the pace to do it anymore and things like that. But on the evidence of last night, he's still a top-class centre-half.
Put yourself in AVB's position watching that. All the senior players who basically didn't respond to him responded on the night.
Yeah, he won't have been too pleased by that, would he? I think the Chelsea's players certainly upped their game last night against Napoli. They were excellent. But I think Roberto Di Matteo has played this quite cleverly. With a team full of experienced players, you don't need to manage them too much. You really don't. I've played in sides with youngsters. They need guidance. They need the AVB character to tell them to do this, tell them to do that. The Chelsea players don't need that, and I think they manage themselves anyway, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a slight on Di Matteo. That's not to say he's not in charge at Stamford Bridge. But when you've got so many experienced players, you sometimes just have to let them get on with it and make them feel like they're managing themselves.
I think that's absolutely right in the short term, and I think it may well be that Di Matteo's approach, which seems to have been to get the senior players together and say, look, for the rest of the season, can we come together and really try and push on for fourth? I think that might work.
Is he a realistic contender for the job?
Well, I don't know. I think they seem to want someone slightly more high-profile, Mourinho, Guardiola, but beyond that, those two who may not be attainable, there's no for me, there's no obvious
coming out
candidate.
of Barcelona this morning that Guardiola is probably going to commit himself to another year.
Apparently, even if he doesn't, Guardiola's plan is to take a sabbatical for a year. He doesn't want to look as though he's betrayed Barca for somebody else. So you're kind of ruling out Guardiola until 2013, 2014 at the earliest. Beyond him and Mourinho, there's people who could go in, but there's no one obvious.
But the brief from Roman Abramovich was to tear up this side and start again. Roberto Di Matteo, I don't think is the man to do that. And even if they win the Champions League, I don't see him as being a strong enough character to do that. So I wonder whether, no matter what he achieves this season, whether he won't be considered because of that.
Well, the problem Di Matteo's got as well is that he's gone in, he's said, as a caretaker, he said to the senior players, I need you on side. He can't then turn around in the summer and say, by the way, you're out on your ear.
It's a little like the Hiddink situation, isn't it? It's quite felicitous circumstances to have, short-term goals with senior players and to go in and just be able to just make sort of minor tweaks and minor things. Give a couple of players, maybe some of the younger players, a bit of confidence and guidance, but the rest just basically let them play. They're still playing the same way as they were playing 10 years ago.
What about Didier Drogba? We saw the best and the worst of him, as we tend to do, last night. Fantastically committed performance, but the play acting came back again. Oh,
it was shocking, wasn't it? It's an absolute embarrassment. But he's not going to change now, Didier Drogba. He's been doing it throughout his career. I hate to see it, but as a player, he's still Chelsea's best striker. You only have to look at that goal, the desire he showed to get across his man, beautiful headed finish. I think he led the line excellently. I think there's at least another year or two in Drogba at Chelsea. I honestly do.
He's quite a late developer, wasn't he? So you can see that he's probably got a little bit more longevity than other strikers of his age.
And what about Torres?
Well, I actually thought he did OK when he came on last night. He looked a bit better than normal, although it is now 24 hours since he scored a goal. Every week, initially there was a sort of reaction, I think, amongst most neutrals, thinking the Torres thing was quite funny, that the British record signing had lost its way so much. But there's a tragedy to it now, and I know Duncan maybe feels slightly differently, but I do feel sorry for Fernando. I think it's injury, it's confidence. He just looks completely shot, and I don't know how he comes back from this point.
I would say that there's a sort of with the Chelsea fans have shown great support for Torres. They really do. They really support him very well. But it's almost like as if they don't want their club to be embarrassed, you know. Because I mean, you know, if you're paying someone that much money and you pay that much, you'd be expecting more. But there's clearly an issue with his confidence having broken down so much that, I mean, even when he had a really good, you know, open goal opportunity last night, he failed it. So maybe beginning of next season is another chance to restart. I don't know. But
the key with Torres is you have to build a side around him. You have to have a player in the hole, putting balls down the channels for him to run onto. That's what Fernando Torres does well, plays on his instincts. Chelsea don't have that, so they're still built on that Chet, Terry, Lampard, Drogba axis. Well,
it's a very complicated situation. I'm in a minority, but I think too much of JT is a bad thing. Thanks for joining us on livesthepitch.co.uk.